I'm really curious. Did you watch any of the speeches last night? Were you able to see any of them?
I watched the whole thing, and I
Oh
was
my-
it was so fun. I watched
Did you see Senator Harris
President.
accept the
Yes, but
nomination? What did you think?
oh, she was fantastic. I liked how she waved to the Zoom wall at the very end of her speech. That was a nice touch.
Hi, everyone who's joining our call right now. We are just waiting a few minutes to let everyone else get on. And we really appreciate your patience and your coming to join us. We're really excited to have you up here.
Super. Marissa, where are you calling in from?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm calling in from Kigali, Rwanda.
Wow. I think you're the only person calling in from the African continent on this call today, or at least on the panelists. Is that correct?
Yes, I am hopefully the only one, unless you guys haven't told me you're going to come visit.
Would love to once travel gets a little bit more conducive. Were you able to catch any of the convention last night, Marissa?
I joined a number of the policy roundtables, but I cannot stay up until 3 a.m., but I am staying up tonight to see Joe Biden's final speech. So I will be caffeinated and ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Super. Watch him accept the nomination. Okay, now jumping over to Nepal. Helen, were you able to watch any of the convention last night?
Yeah, so I stayed up. So the thing about being in Asia is that it's right in the middle of your night. So I did go to part of the API caucus, got to hear Kamala speak. Then she was live on the Zoom, and then her signal didn't work out. So she went out and then she came back like, oh, I'm back. So it was really entertaining to see that, but I got to hear her speak a little bit there, and then went to bed, but I got to hear President Obama and Kamala Harris's speeches for the evening portion of the
Nice. It's a very real experience we're having with Zoom is cutting out. Julia, do you want to start, or we have one more time for impressions?
I think we're good.
All right.
We're at 96. I think we're right at the right moment. So let's get started, everybody. I just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. My name is Julia Bryan. I'm the Global Chair of Democrats Abroad. I'm joined by many members of our DA 2020 delegation. You've just heard from two of them, as well as by our Comms Director, Aaron Fishburne, and our special guests, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Representative Marie Manoogian, former US Ambassador to Canada, Bruce Heyman, and his wife, Vicki, and someone who's held both roles, former Governor of Michigan and former US Ambassador to Canada, Jim Blanchard, and his wife, Mrs. Blanchard. Today's call is a nod to the breakfast that delegations have each morning at the National Convention every 4 years. There we review the business for the day, and special speakers drop by to say hello and speak for a bit. This is our third and our last breakfast of the week, and I'm really happy you could all join and be with us. So pour yourself a coffee and let's get started. As we know, this year's elections couldn't be more important. We're working day and night to not only mobilize our voters abroad so that you can request your ballots, but also to help you return your ballots and protect them in the process. So what I'd love to ask you guys to do is, if you have any questions about voting this year, please join us after this call, after our speakers conclude their statements, and we'll be there to help you answer some of your questions. We really would love to make sure you are ready to vote this year. And now let's go to our speakers. I'm really honored to be joined by Jim Blanchard, who's the former Governor of Michigan and also the former US Ambassador to Canada. Governor Blanchard, welcome. And would you like to introduce our first speaker?
I'm delighted to. Thank you, Julia. Thank you for your leadership. And I also want to acknowledge Bruce Heyman, former ambassador, and Vicki, they're a team, because of their leadership. We have a group called Ambassadors for Biden, and they are providing leadership on trying to get more votes from voters abroad, Democrats abroad. So to coordinate with you is really a special thing, and we really appreciate that. I should also mention that they wrote a book called The Art of Diplomacy. I don't know, I'm sure it's available on Amazon, but I wanted to tell you all that because that's a current bestseller. Now on with the show here. All of you have noticed that the governors have emerged in the United States as the leaders in dealing with this tragic COVID-19. The White House completely abdicated its responsibility. And the governors have emerged, and you've seen a number of them. And one of the prominent leaders in helping save lives and prevent further health tragedies is the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. Now, you might not remember that she was the one Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer selected to give the response to President Trump's State of the Union message. And she did a wonderful job. You know, she comes off a fabulous career as a state legislator in Michigan, among other things, helping lead the fight to expand healthcare for 680,000 new people under Medicaid. But since she's been governor, here she is. She's dealing with COVID-19 while the president makes jokes and cracks about her. She's dealing with recession, with the budget challenges caused by the recession, with a record flood, and of course, trying to improve race relations amidst all the economic and health hardships we have. And you know what? She's done it all with a smile. We are so proud. By the way, she helped Joe Biden win the primary in Michigan as well. But we have Bernie people here too, so they must be acknowledged and thanked for their support and unity. But we in Michigan are so proud of our governor. People all around the country that I run into by way of Zoom meetings all ask me, do I know her? I said, I sure do know her, and I'm so proud of her. I give you one great governor, the governor of Michigan, who's going to lead us to victory in our state and help lead us to victory in the United States, Gretchen Whitmer.
Well, good morning, everyone. And Governor Blanchard, thank you so much. That was such a kind introduction. Governor Blanchard and Janet Blanchard have been long friends, and you're one of my best advisors as I'm navigating all of these unprecedented moments that have converged in the midst of national tragedy that has been exacerbated by incompetence and petty leadership in Washington, D.C. And as some of you may know, I am the 49th governor of the great state of Michigan. That's what people here at home call me, even though the guy in the White House likes to call me that woman from Michigan. I'll wear it as a badge of honor because I am proud to be a woman in the state of Michigan. And I am so incredibly proud of the ticket that has come together and the way that this party is unified. These are unprecedented circumstances. There's no question. And there's no question I'd much rather be in person at a breakfast with all of you. But here we are showing the world that we can conduct affairs of state and of the nation and be smart about it and be safe about it and protect one another. And that's precisely how we're going to get out of the crisis that we are in. You know, I know that there are 9 million people, 9 million Americans that are abroad, 650,000 in Canada alone. And so that's why I want to thank former governor, former ambassador Jim Blanchard, but also former ambassador Bruce Heyman for bringing us together, to prioritizing, to helping Americans who are abroad, to make sure that your votes get counted and get in. We're so grateful that you stay engaged, and the more people that turn out, the better likelihood we will put America in a position where we can get our arms around COVID-19 and strengthen our economy. In Michigan, you might recall, Donald Trump won by less than 11,000 votes. And you think about the fact that there's 650,000 Americans in Canada alone. It means that these Americans abroad can make a huge difference in the outcome of this election. And I know you care, and I know you see every single day what the Trump administration has done to our standing in the world, how our response pales in comparison to those of nations around the world, and which is why it's so incumbent on all of us to make sure that you are empowered to ensure that your voice is heard. You know, we say this every single cycle. It's the most important election of our lifetimes. And every cycle it's true. It's very true. But this one is maybe one of the most important elections in our nation's history. And this is about making sure that we've got leadership in Washington, D.C. and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that understands science, facts, that is going to stay tethered to working on behalf of the American people, not on their own behalf, not their own ego or their own politics that drive decisions, but what's in the best interest of the American public. Person that's going to work to expand affordable health care, not challenge it in court and threaten to take it away from millions. And someone who is really dedicated to building a more just and equitable and sustainable nation. I think this crisis has really shown us how important it is that we've got democratic leadership up and down the ballots. It is truly life or death in the midst of a global pandemic. And we've got to do everything we can to ensure that it's easier for people to vote and everyone has a real path to prosperity within our nation. And so in Kamala Harris and in Joe Biden, I know we've got candidates of integrity, of intellect, and as Michelle Obama said the other night, of empathy. All of those are attributes that are sorely lacking today, but that we can change very quickly in a matter of weeks. And so we've got important work to do. We've got to not leave any stone unturned. I can tell you right now in Michigan, there are reports in some of our postal offices that machines are being disassembled, despite what the representations were from the U.S. Postmaster General. And that's precisely why we are going to be on the offensive in terms of taking this administration to court, but also on the defensive to ensure we've got easy application process for people to get their ballots, that we've got a system where every ballot that comes in can get counted, and we've got, for people at home, drop boxes so that they can drop off their ballots if they feel like that's necessary because of what's happening. But we want to help you make sure that your votes get counted. And so stay on the line and get your questions answered if you've got them. And as soon as that ballot comes, fill it out and get it back. We're building an infrastructure here to get Joe and Kamala elected, and you're a critical part of that. So thank you for being so engaged from different parts of the world. Some of you are drinking coffee, some of you might be having something else because it's a totally different time of day. But thank you for your engagement, for not relinquishing your duty as Americans, and for the vision that you bring and the voices that you bring. It's truly important, and we are grateful for all of that you are doing abroad and for all that you are doing here at home in casting that vote and getting others to as well. So thank you, Governor Blanchard. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a few minutes of your time. We are primed to win this election, but we can take nothing for granted. So thank all of you for doing your part.
Well, thank you so much, Governor. We really appreciate that. And our first question for you is about, the challenges of voting from abroad. You just mentioned some of the challenges of voting in the United States. And there are 200,000, around 200,000 Michiganders abroad, and we want to make sure they get their ballots back to you. What would you say you would recommend to your voters who are trying to get their ballots back through the post in order to get there on time?
So certainly we open up our applications for absentee ballots. So we've got a phenomenal Secretary of State named Jocelyn Benson in Michigan. We could go online before the primary and check for both the general and the primary. But if people didn't avail themselves of that, today is the first day that you can go on and request that absentee ballot for the general election. Do it now if you haven't done it yet. And as soon as that ballot comes to you, fill it out and send it back. And if you're able to pay to have it sent through, an additional service or a quicker service that you can feel comfortable with, and you're able to do that, I would encourage you to strongly consider doing that. We want to make sure that these ballots get in. I'm also trying to work with this legislature, although in Michigan, they haven't been a whole lot of help in terms of leveling barriers for people. But to let clerks start to process earlier and to count postmarks as when a ballot, determining if a ballot is valid or not. That's not yet the law. And so currently the law is it's got to be in hand at the clerk. And so that's why time is of the essence to apply for that ballot if you haven't, and cast it as quickly as you receive it, as soon as you can fill it out.
Well, thank you, Governor. And I'd also just say to everyone, remember what for Michiganders who are relying on the Postal Service, we recommend sending in a federal write-in absentee ballot now, because you can do that now. And you can we'll send more information on where you can find your sample lookup ballot, fill in your ballot, and postal mail it now. With 2.5 months or so to get your ballot back, you have time to do it if you get it done now. And it's so wonderful that the governor and her team are working on these challenges. We really appreciate it. It makes an amazing difference because you know, when governors reach out to their legislature and ask for this, it tells us that we're being heard and our challenges are being heard. So we really appreciate that. And we have some links in the chat box for where you can go for more information, and we'll be discussing this after the call. Really important for everyone. Thank you so much. So our next question is going to come from someone from Flint, actually. And it's a question about infrastructure in Flint and what's happening there. Aaron, do you have that question ready to go?
Would you like me to read the question as
yes,
well?
Go ahead.
All right, great. This question, like you said, from a questioner from Flint. In my hometown of Flint, Governor, people still don't have clean drinking water, and no one has been held to account for that. The problem of clean drinking water is not just Flint's, of course. There are dozens of communities all over the United States that suffer from this degradation of infrastructure. And at the height of the pandemic in Michigan, a dam broke just outside of Midland that caused millions of dollars of damage and destruction. Infrastructure of all sorts all over the country needs to be rebuilt. And you ran on a campaign of fix the damn roads. And so the question is about how will Biden's plan to build back better help America fix its decaying infrastructure?
Well, thank you for the question. I appreciate the question and a couple of updates. So today we are announcing a settlement with the plaintiffs in Flint. It has been it's been 6 years since my predecessor made decisions around saving a few dollars and corroded the drinking water in Flint and made it toxic. And so we, from day one, said we want to get this settled. We want to get some justice for the people of Flint, and that settlement is being announced today. The mayor of Flint, Sheldon Neely, is very close to finishing the final lead pipe replacement. And so we're making great strides on that front. And we've made a lot of additional commitments that we, through the education of kids, through kids nutrition, through senior programs, through school programs, to ensure that we do what we can to help the people of Flint get through the crisis that was foisted upon them by my predecessor. The Biden campaign around infrastructure is really important. These two dams that failed, and we had to evacuate 10,000 people in the midst of a global pandemic, are indicative of the type of lack of investment infrastructure that is the hallmark of the campaign that I ran on, but certainly is felt all across the country. When I say fix the damn roads, I've heard so many other governors use that same phrase now because it is a visceral frustration that the American people have that hits people at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum harder because we all rely on these fundamentals. And when you have to pay for a busted rim, that can be a month's rent. And so the Biden plan around infrastructure is about making a real investment in the infrastructure of the future, being smarter, ensuring that we are connected in a way that supports future mobility and green jobs and green energy and advanced mobility. And so there are a lot of aspects of the Biden plan that will go a long way toward fixing America's infrastructure. We have a lot of work to do, but there's no question we're tired of false choices, that you can't both have good schools and good roads. We know better, and so does Joe Biden. That's why he wants to build back better.
Good.
Well, thank you. So our next question is about, Black Lives Matter has been on the top of everyone's minds this summer, and such an incredibly important topic for us as we are watching from outside the United States and just being horrified by what's happening and really concerned about these issues. So how will the Biden-Harris administration and Democratic Congress work to contain white supremacy and serve racial justice?
Well, day one, I think, will make a big difference. I mean, the day of the election, one of the concerns that I think everyone should have is this rhetoric coming out of the White House that they're already starting to undermine the results of an election that they know they're in trouble in terms of winning. Starting to call into question. It's these attacks on the Postal Service. It is statements like, If we don't win, it's rigged. Not committing to accepting a result if it yields a loss. And that's precisely why I keep telling people we need to make this decisive. We need to win big. We cannot think that 51% is going to pull it off. And I really appreciated the humor that Hillary Clinton showed last night, but also the wisdom that you can win an election by 3 million votes and still lose. And if there is any gray area, they will exploit it and they will do anything they can to hold on to power. And that's precisely why they're doing all these things to undermine the result right now. So a bigger turnout is critical. But on day one, Joe Biden's going to walk in with a cabinet that will take these issues on, local domestic terrorism from these white supremacy groups. And I know that having an attorney general appointed by Joe Biden will make an incredible difference. Donald Trump has empowered and given license to and given comfort to some of the worst, I think, tendencies in our society, and emboldened them and put in danger so many people. Anti-Semitism is up. Anti-Muslim rhetoric is up. Anti-LGBTQ, anti-African American causes and people, communities of color. That's why I think just even on November 4th, if we have a decisive victory, that will have an incredible immediate impact. But the appointees that Joe Biden and the agenda that he and Kamala Harris are going to set is going to move America forward in a way that undoes a lot of the backsliding that has happened under the Trump administration. But it will be hard. And we just have to gird ourselves for that, but know that with the right people in office, it will make a huge difference quickly.
Well, thank you for that. And it's great to have you in office as one of those examples. Our next question is about you and the challenges that you're facing right now. And Anne Delogos from France is going to ask that question. Go ahead, Anne. She's one of our delegates.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thanks, Anne.
Always very important with these. So there's a question about leadership. What's it like yourself? What's it like being in this moment with all the challenges, with the election, for you personally? What is it like?
So thank you for asking. It's funny. Women often ask, how are you personally? What is it like personally? So I appreciate the question. One of the things that I never would have contemplated. I mean, of course, I never contemplated we'd be in the midst of a global pandemic. Certainly never contemplated, a lot of the associated crises that we're confronting because of the mismanagement of the pandemic in America. But I never would have imagined that I'd be battling a White House that won't take seriously the need to follow science, that won't use the Defense Production Act to produce things like N95 masks, a White House that undermines governors who are paying attention to science and following best practices, a White House that has suggested the worst types of advice that people can kill a virus by drinking some bleach. I mean, this is the stuff out of a bad, twisted, cynical comedy. And yet this is our reality right now. As governor, I've had so many death threats. I've had people demonstrate on my lawn after the president eggs them on. They show up with automatic rifles. I've had a legislature that was working with me turn on me as soon as Donald Trump made all of this political and personal. They stopped extending the emergency orders. They're trying to take away the powers that I've used to keep people safe. And so I remain undeterred. I'm not going to be bullied into making decisions that it will hurt people. I am awfully grateful that there are 24 Democratic governors that I can talk to, that I can support, and that I can get support from and share best practices and our thought processes. Because the fact that there are so many of us, we see the difference in states that have Democratic governors versus Republicans who capitulate to the Trump ego as opposed to follow the science. And so we have the courage of our convictions, and the results speak for themselves. But I just can't imagine how much better off we'll all be when we have a president who follows science, who is mature and is consistent and is accurate and is focused on the right things, because this economic pain we are feeling is all a result of the incompetent pandemic response. And 170,000 people have died because of it. And in all of their memory, we have a duty to make sure we get this right. And so even on the hardest days, I am fortified and inspired to continue doing the work, because we've got a lot more to do.
I just wanted to thank you for that. And also you actually mentioned something about the death threats and all that. And I think sometimes we know how essential workers, they're at risk for COVID-19, but also like people in stores who have to enforce the mask regulations being assaulted, contact tracers, like there being conspiracy theories and people being very hostile. So I thank you for, I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what, but I think that was a good point to raise.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for adding that. I think that was an important point too.
Absolutely. Our last question for you, thank you so much for your time, is from Diego Rivas. He's in Berlin, Germany. Diego?
Yeah. Hello, Governor, and hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I just have one last question. Yeah, could you, we really need a big win, like you said, not just a huge win against Donald Trump, but we need Democrats in every office across the country, local, regional, state, etc. So could you actually tell us a little bit more about who's running down ballot in Michigan and what's the importance of winning down ballot? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Diego. I appreciate that. I think that you're making a really important point. We've got to win up and down these ballots. I know that President Obama reiterated that last night, and I think it's really important for us not to lose sight, because Democratic governors have shown the leadership in these times. We've got 13 races across the country for governor. Here in Michigan, we have a U.S. Senator who is up for re-election, Gary Peters. So we've got to return him to the U.S. Senate and hopefully pick up some other Senate seats around the nation so that Joe Biden has a Democratic Senate to work with and we can really make his agenda a reality. Also, we want to return a number of our congressional seats that we picked up. So Haley Stevens, who is a rock star, Alyssa Slotkin, also a rock star, two of the women who flipped seats from red to blue last cycle are on the ballot. We want to return them. And then here locally, we've got State House. So my legislature is completely Republican controlled right now. We are still living with old districts from gerrymandering, and we're changing how we're moving forward. But for the next 2 years, we've got to deal with the gerrymander districts that we have. And despite that, we have a real opportunity to flip the House. So picking up just 4 seats in the Michigan House gives me a Democratic House and makes it a legislature that I can get something done with, as opposed to one that's going to keeping undermining me. And so those are the big things on the ballot here in Michigan: the State House races, these congressional races, Gary Peters, our U.S. Senator, and making sure Michigan falls on the right side of the presidential this year.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your morning convention. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
You take care. And you know, this last question is a super pivot to our next speaker, who is Representative Marie Manoogian, and who is running for House Rep in Michigan. So Governor Blanchard, would you like to introduce Marie, please?
Sure. So it's Mari. I know it looks like Marie, but it's Mari Manoogian. And
Wonderful, wonderful.
You've just heard from the new generation of leaders in our governors from Gretchen Whitmer. Well, there's another new generation, a little bit younger than that, in Mari Manoogian. Mari Manoogian is a 27-year-old state representative. She came to my office to tell me, you know, I'm planning on running for state representative. I know the district has been Republican, but I've studied this, and I think I'll flip that. And from that moment on, I realized that Mari Manoogian had so much energy and so much drive. She had worked at the state UN office in the State Department. I've got to get something on with our computer. There. Anyway, she's 20. She is a ball of fire, and you know, Gretchen Whitmer is very, very diplomatic. She has a Tea Party legislature. I forgot to mention that. Only one of them of all these Republicans questioned assault weapons in the Capitol. They stormed the Capitol with assault weapons, purportedly stay-at-home orders. But the truth is they were all told that the Democrats are going to take their guns away from them. So they went there and brandished assault. So there should be a law against that. I'm actually working to make sure we get one because it never would have happened in my days. The state police would have moved in on it. But that's another topic. But the point is the Democrats in Lansing in the legislature are in a minority, and they're working very hard to help Governor Whitmer. And one of their leaders, who was showcased the other night in the convention during the keynote speeches that we had Tuesday night, is State Representative Mari Manoogian. She is the very first Democrat ever to be elected in her district. It's right near us. We are big supporters. She is a ball of fire. And you're looking, when you hear from Mari, you're looking at one of those really outstanding leaders of the future, who's actually right now a leader. But I'm saying she's going to be around a long time. This is a good thing. And by the way, she worked in this, as I said earlier, the State Department. She knows international relations. She knows how important that will be to have a president who cares about working with the world and returns us to a sense of decency and global cooperation. So Mari, please.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Gov. Really appreciate it. Hi, Janet. Good morning. Thanks so much for the kind introduction. So hi, I'm Mari Manoogian. I'm the state representative in Birmingham, Michigan, which is my hometown. I'm also representing Bloomfield Hills, Bloomfield Township, and the eastern portion of West Bloomfield. And a couple nights ago, I had the honor of joining 16 of my colleagues as one of the keynote speakers for this year's convention. It was really just such a thrill and such an honor for me. Was kind of surprised when I originally got the call and wasn't really sure what it was going to be like, but it was really awesome. The DNC sent us a kit to film it with, and so we had all the technology we needed, and folks sort of, got the, I love giving the behind the scenes look because people are always sort of asking how this all happened. And they set up, we set up all of our technology, and we had a director help walk us through it. So it all looked good together. And I got to see the final product when all of you saw it. So I was just as surprised as you were at some of the cuts that we saw in the film. So just wanted to say how appreciative I am of all of you being on here today, and making sure that you are casting your ballots from abroad. I know Governor Whitmer, who's an amazing friend and mentor of mine, spoke really heavily about how important it is to vote the whole ticket and make sure you're getting your ballots in on time. I can't emphasize that enough. We know that in Michigan, we only lost the presidency in 2016 in this state by 2 votes per precinct. So your votes here, if you're a Michigan voter, it really matters. It makes a huge difference to us, especially in these down ticket races that people don't often pay as close attention to. Although I flipped my district by several percentage points, there are districts that we need to flip that could be decided by as few as 100 votes. I have friends that are in the legislature that won their primaries by as few as 5 to 7 votes. Your votes make a difference. Every single one of them does. And so, when you're thinking about these, whether or not you can get your ballot in on time, just make sure you're doing it in a timely manner, because candidates across our state are counting on you to vote.
Well, thank you so much. And we really appreciate your leadership, and we're working hard on making sure you get elected again, because it's so true. Americans abroad are the margin of difference for elections, and in Michigan, it's a great margin that we can help with. So everybody, all you Michiganders on this call, make sure that you not only vote and get your ballot, but make sure you ask all your friends and family to do the same thing. Between all of us together, we can get this done. So our next question is from, we have queued up. Go ahead, Aaron, who's up next? I think it is going to be
Anya is going to ask the next
go ahead,
question.
Anya. Thank you.
So you're obviously wonderfully young. What unique experiences and challenges did you face in running, campaigning, and serving?
Sure. So as a younger elected official, there are some challenges that are unique to us that other folks may not see from day to day. And I can tell you right now, I'm like looking out at my kitchen table and there's a stack of dishes a mile high. I'm not married, I don't have any kids. And so I live alone and I do a lot of this stuff myself. And so to not have, I have to do all my own laundry. I have to do my dishes. I basically do all of this stuff as a candidate. And then I do all of the things that you would have, maybe have family help pitch in and help with around the house and do all personal things. I do that all myself. So time management is a really tough thing as a young person. When you don't have kids, sometimes there's an expectation that, because you don't have kids and other obligations, that you have more time to devote to work rather than to devote to yourself. And so it can be kind of a challenge to, for me at least, it's really hard for me to say no to things. And so I have a hard time managing and balancing my time. But one of the things, I guess, more on like the campaign side of things is people sort of underestimated my ability to win, and they underestimated my ability to get votes. I think there was this sort of idea that because I was a young person and because I don't have children, that, voters wouldn't trust me to make decisions about school. They wouldn't trust me to make decisions about healthcare because, I don't have a quote family. Well, of course I have a family. I have 2 parents, I have a sister. It wasn't all that long ago that I was in our public education system here in our district because I represent my hometown. So, some of these challenges were sort of red herrings, and they were things that I was, we talked about as a team, how to overcome them. And I'm really proud that we were able to.
Thank you so much for that. And I think as a young person who is able to respond and listen to a huge demographic of voters, that's something that people always forget about. But I mean, it's something that we cannot forget about. And Democrats abroad, 64% of our voters are between 18 and 44. It's a huge
awesome
group. And if we don't have leaders who represent that group, they won't feel they should come out and vote. So I think it's really important that you're out there and taking the lead. And thank you so much for that leadership.
Absolutely. I mean, some of my own friends, I went to GW in Washington, D.C. and studied international affairs there. And so a lot of my friends are living and working abroad, and they're American citizens. And so they are Democrats abroad as well. And so this is something that, they may not be on this call, but this is something that, I'm very familiar with just in my personal life.
And Congresswoman, I think the website that we really like to send people to. Can you make sure all of your friends and family?
I will make sure I let them know.
Okay, votefromabroad.org. I just have to say it at least one time every 5 minutes. It's our job.
Hey, you got to put the plug in. It's okay. I guess
it's really important. That's why we're here. Really, I even did it for the roll call. It was important. So our next question is Juan. Juan, you can jump in and ask the next question, please.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate all your work that you're doing in Michigan. You've worked extensively in the foreign affairs with the State Department and the United Nations, and now you're working so locally at your home state. They say all politics is local. So think globally, act globally. You embody these statements. Any comments, thoughts on how going from global to local engagement and the U.S. place work, basically how is it possible that you're going from something you've been working something so international and now you're going something so local? How does that affect your output into the world?
Yeah, people ask me that question all the time, sort of like, what does your State Department experience or working at the UN have to do with becoming a state rep, and how did you make that switch? And I'll say it was, kind of pretty easy, actually. I serve on the Military, Veterans, and Homeland Security Committee, and I also serve on the Commerce and Tourism Committee, as well as the Energy Committee. But the first two really lend themselves to the experience that I had at the State Department at the United Nations. But also, working at the State Department, I saw some people in the chat said that they had worked at the State Department as well. And you can attest to this, I'm sure. A lot of what you learn when you work in foreign affairs is not just about topics or about issues, but about skills that you can transfer from one position to another. So a lot of the work that I do now really has to do with reaching across the aisle. So for example, I worked really closely with 2 Republican leaders on distracted driving legislation. It was something that was really rare for a freshman Democrat to do, to reach across the aisle on her first bill, but it was something that was innately in me because it was a skill that I had learned while working at the State Department, bringing, folks who may have differing ideas together to get something done. And so, while, I might have had more experience in the international space, and that's what both my degrees are in, a lot of the skills that I learned while I was at State and while I was at GW really were transferable to this position. Great question, though.
Thank you so much. And that was one. He's in Vienna, Austria. So we're literally all over the world. So John Eastwood, speaking of around the world, we have someone from Taiwan on the call, one of our DNC members, John Eastwood. Would you like to take the next question? Oh, or maybe John's video is frozen. John, if you can't do it, we will.
Yes.
Oh, yay, go.
Right. So we're wondering what things are you doing to protect the post offices over in Michigan?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to pull this up for you right now. So in Michigan, we've got some major challenges. I'm sure you've all seen, like within the past 24 hours, Grand Rapids Television actually put out a video that showed different machinery from our post offices, sorting machines being dismantled in the parking lots. This is a huge issue. I live not too far from Pontiac, Michigan, which is where one of the worst sites for dismantling the post office has taken place. They are down, I think 300,000 pieces per hour is what their fewer pieces per hour is what's happened over there in terms of sorting. And so basically the best thing that we can do here as state representatives is make sure that when citizens see an issue with the post office, whether they're having issues getting their mail, if they think that there's something that's going on that shouldn't be happening, we just need to make sure that our citizens are calling the Attorney General's office. There's an Attorney General tip line. And while this is Democrats Abroad, I have the number. So in case you have family that's in Michigan and you want to give it to them, the number is 517-335-7659. And so basically what we're doing is as state representatives, we're encouraging our constituents to, let us know if there's an issue. We're forwarding this information on to the Attorney General's office because as state representatives, because we don't have control over the post office and the postal system, since that's more of a federal issue, what we're doing is we're making sure that any time our constituents come to us, we're either referring them to their congressional office to make sure that for me, I have three, because of the gerrymandering of my district, I have three congressmen and women that represent my constituents. So whether it's Andy Levin, Haley Stevens, or Brenda Lawrence, that their offices are aware because they're collecting that information and they're using it in their congressional hearings, but then also making sure the AG's office knows about it.
Perfect. Thank you, John. And this is John's last day as a DNC member, so we were really happy that he was able to ask that question. And live from Taiwan too. So thank you. I just wanted to highlight the Attorney General tip line that's in the chat. And our next question is going to be coming to us from Aaron. Tell us who?
Adrian George.
Adrian George. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hi there.
Hi, where's Adrian at?
I'm in Sweden. Thank you.
Amazing.
I think you have a lot of, or several people of Swedish heritage living in Michigan.
Yes.
We're really proud of you. Our youth caucus is really proud of you. And we do have a global youth caucus with members all over the world. And even beyond them, there's so many young people who are hungry to change the world. What sage advice do you have for them?
Oh man, that's like really heavy. So I think the biggest advice I would have is find an issue or a candidate and roll up your sleeves and get involved. For me, I saw that there was an opening to run for state rep in my hometown. The person who had previously served here was term limited, and as Governor Blanchard said, I did my research and I looked to see if it was possible that we could win, and took the shot, and we were, thank God we were successful. But I would say, if you're a young person and you have, a particular issue that you're passionate about, or you've met somebody who's running for office that you care about deeply, roll up your sleeves and get involved. If you, give and kind of step out of your comfort zone. I'm not super used to making a ton of phone calls. I didn't, I prefer to knock doors. I didn't do a ton of personal phone banking, but that's all changed now. I don't really have a choice. And so, things are a little bit different this time around, but all of us are stepping out of our comfort zones to make sure that we're saving democracy here. So that's what I would give in terms of my advice to young folks.
Well, thank you. And as your last question,
Sure.
We are always so interested in what motivates you and why do you think it's so important that everyone vote this year?
Oh gosh. Okay. So what motivates me, I've met so many, and I mean, like, I'm a young person, but I've met like so many young kids, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, young kids who, prior to the pandemic, when I was doing March's Reading Month, who really just gave me hope and optimism for the future of our state. You know, they're just so, fresh. They're not jaded yet by the things that are happening around them, and they see America for the potential of what it can be. And so whenever that's like one of my most favorite things as a representative, is to be around young people of all ages, and to really keep me grounded and reminding me of what the fight is, what I'm in the fight for. And my gosh, I don't know how many times I can say this, but this is the election that you have to vote in. If you were thinking about sitting this one out, don't. What I would really love and ask is if and this is something we're doing in the Michigan House, if you have 3 friends that that trust you, that you're good friends with, who maybe aren't as connected to politics as you are, or not as into politics as you are, ask them if they're considering voting. And try to convince them to, request an absentee ballot. And if they ask questions about, how to do it, help walk them through it. It's a concept that we're calling vote tripling. It's not something we've invented. It's been around for a while. Essentially, if you are someone who, if you're close friends with someone, you're more likely to convince them to turn out and vote than a stranger asking them to turn out and vote. So if you have a few friends that, maybe aren't as engaged as you are, my one ask is that you ask them if they are considering voting, and tell them how important it is too. We need everybody turning out.
Thank you so much. And that is a really good pivot. We actually have a voting champion program. And by the way, guys, it's was run and started by someone from Michigan, Linda Addison. Of course. So again, you are exactly right, Congresswoman. Basically, if you can ask 3 or 4 or 5 people to go out and vote and help them and make it feel normal for them to vote, it's so important and so impactful. And Linda's going to put in the chat box that link for anyone who wants to join that voting program. But in the meantime, thank you, Congresswoman, for your time. Everybody, big round of applause.
Appreciate it.
We really appreciate your time, and we'd love to talk to you again. We have a wonderful youth caucus all around the world who would adore speaking to you if we could be in touch.
I would love it. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Ciao, ciao.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mari.
Have a good one. Bye, Gov. See you later.
And with that, we're wrapping up. We're going to have our beloved Ambassador Bruce Heyman and Vicki Heyman do our wrap for us today. And let me just come to them so I can pin their videos. Oh, there they are.
Hey, everyone. So first of all, let me just say thank you to Janet and Jim for your leadership and for your mentorship and friendship to both Vicki and to me. Jim was a congressman, a governor, an ambassador, but he's a longtime passionate supporter of all the values that all of us are fighting for. And Michigan itself is so representative of those values. But I wanted to touch on 2 things as it relates to Canada and so many Americans living in Canada that actually are from Michigan. But as Julia said, there are 200,000 Michiganders abroad, and we need every Michigander to vote. So think about it this way. The Great Lakes, water is so important. We talked about fresh water in this conversation with Flint, but fresh water, the Great Lakes represent nearly 1/4 of all the fresh water on the planet Earth. And no state borders more Great Lakes than Michigan. Now, our partner on the other side of almost all of those Great Lakes is Canada. And the Great Lakes in the middle of our continent is the drinking water for 40 million people. And we have to protect that. Now, we have a president who is dismantling environmental policies left and right. And we need to change the presidency to protect those Great Lakes. But we also need to give the support to the governor all the way up and down the ballot to also have the policies within Michigan to support those Great Lakes. Now, Michigan is the largest trading partner as an individual state for Canada, and we do a lot of business. But we also share this environment together. And if you care about the environment and the economy, there's no more important place as an American living abroad to vote than to vote in Michigan. And so I just want to emphasize that this is an important environmental decision, and we need every single vote we can get for Michigan. Now, Hillary lost by less than 11,000 votes. And if there are 200,000 Michiganders living outside the United States, 10% more of the Michigander participation this year could swing that differential. We need every vote, and it's going to be so important. Now, other people are watching this as well, so why don't we talk about the get out the vote effort in general?
I just want to say thanks also, and talk about the urgency of now. And we know that there's 75 days until the election, but for us, really, maybe that's 50 days. We need, ballots will be coming out September 19th in less than a month. And the idea that we need to get people registered and activated in voting is so important. And I also wanted to reiterate the idea of exponential organizing. And I love the idea of tripling the vote. So not only reach out to those friends of yours who you don't think may vote or never voted before, but reach out to your friends who have voted. Ask them to become your partners and ask them to also reach out to folks. So think about the people in your network that you can not only tap to please vote, but please help us help your people to vote as well. So just think in your head really about this power that you have as one individual to impact not just 3 votes, but maybe 9 votes, or maybe 9 to the 3rd votes. So that idea of building your network exponentially. And again, I just really want to thank Julia and all the leaders here in Democrats Abroad. I know Bruce and I have had a front row seat to how hard you're working. And I know that we're preaching to the choir here. But I just want to say, like everybody on this call, heads down to the finish line. We can do this. And I think we need to support each other. And these partnerships are really important. And it's fun to be part of a partnership. I know Jana and Jim share, like Bruce and I, this real passion for politics and keeping our country on the right path, as do you. So grab your partner and your partners and everyone that you know and bring them to the finish line with you. So that's my appeal this morning.
And as Michelle Obama said the other day, we've got to vote like our life depends on it.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yep.
It does. And the future of our democracy depends on it. And Vicki and I and Janet and Jim really believe that Americans living abroad can and potentially will determine the outcome of not only this election at the presidential level, but at so many of these senatorial races and state races. You guys have the power. It's there. The numbers are there. It's just a matter of engaging and activating these folks.
We have these dreams that the story at the end of the election is that Americans living outside the United States took the election. So we know we have the power to do that. And if you think about, this 6.5 million of you living outside the United States, eligible voters, if we can double or triple that number, we could bring 1 million new voters to the election, and so many from battleground states. So just keep that in the front of mind and tell that story about the power that we have as individuals, but the collective power is incredible.
So we'll end with one thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all that you're doing as being delegates, as representing Americans abroad. Thank you, Julia, to your entire organization, Aaron, and Diana, who's been very helpful to us, tirelessly working with us. Just say thank you, and I'll turn it back over to you, Julia.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's always such a pleasure to have you guys on a call, and we know you have our backs, and we have yours too, and we love working with you. And I just want to highlight in the chat box, there's a voting champions toolkit that it talks just like what Vicki was talking about, the relational building and what we were hearing from Congresswoman Manoogian as well. Now, before we get off this call, today is the last day of the convention, and that means it's the last day of 3 of our DNC members' terms of service with us. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time giving them big shout outs and thank yous for the work they did. So John Eastwood and Connie Board, if you guys would turn on off your mute buttons and say hello to everybody, we would love to see you. Please go ahead and wave.
We're
Connie,
still gonna miss you guys.
I miss you so much.
Yeah,
Connie
it's
Board.
the end of a great experience. Being with you, sleeping 4 in a room.
Exactly.
Schlepping across miles of the United States, going to meetings, meeting all of the wonderful, wonderful DNC members that we've met. And we love you. We're still there anyhow. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. We love you too. And John, thank you so much for everything you've done. And you never shared a room with us, so you don't have the.
Not that we haven't tried.
but we had such great experiences, all 8 of us, and we're going to really miss you guys. And a big shout out to Orlando, who might be watching from Facebook. Thank you, Orlando. And thank you, Connie. And again, you guys want to say anything?
Well, I'm going to miss you guys very much as well, but at least I'm still involved with Democrats Abroad, and still, you know, I know that one of the most beautiful things about attending a convention is it's like a revival tent for great policy. And I loved experiencing it with all of you.
And and the only thing we're missing is the swag, which is why we had to make our own signs. And again, thank you guys. Brought to you by the children in my household, as I'm not going to claim any responsibility.
Thank you.
Well done.
So, and with that, we are going to wrap up and move towards the voting questions section. Thank you, Governor Blanchard, and thank you, Mrs. Blanchard. We really appreciate it.
Thank
you.
Thank you for your leadership. And Vicki and Bruce, thanks for
Yes,
involving us in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Green.
Heyman. Thank you so much, Vicki. We love having you on the call, as always. Everybody wave. And oh, look, thank you, Diego. Build back better. That's right. That's a perfect sign for Michigan.
Burdens, yes.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to go to voter questions. You know, this is a really, really important year to make sure your ballots are counted. And we know there's some challenges out there. There are 22 states that require postal mail ballot return, including Michigan. So we just want to talk a little bit about what your options are as voters. And, you know, we're going to be putting up a meme so you can see the whole list of voters, of the 22 states. And the thing that we would like you all to remember, if you are one of those postal mail voters, is you have an option right now. That's an option we talked about a little bit earlier in the call. It's to send a backup ballot, a federal write-in absentee ballot to your state now. We really recommend it because if you have to postal mail your ballot, it might not get there in time if you wait until September 19th when ballots are released. So please, the first step that you take in order to send in those write-in absentee ballots is you go to votefromabroad.org and you request your ballot. You have to do it. It's part of the process. So you request your ballot at votefromabroad.org, and then you go to fvap.gov/FWAB, and all the links are in the chat box, and you fill in your absentee ballot with information, and we're going to give you information on where you can find what's on your ballot. Ballotpedia does a great job of this. They have sample ballots for every single zip code. So you just go there, fill in your ballot. Spelling errors do not count. Don't worry about it. They have to overlook them. And then you postal mail that ballot back. Do that today. Don't wait. It's really important. If you are in a place where it's taking 2 months or 3 months to get your ballot back, please do this now. Democracy is depending upon us. We just heard about the importance of our votes and the margins of difference. We can make the difference in that 11,000 for Michigan. If we could do that with FWABs, it would be kind of a great story, I think. So please go ahead and go to all those links and get that done. And now we really want to answer any questions you have about voting. And have we put the list of states in the chat yet? There's 22 states, again, that require postal mail. Many of them are swing states. Really important that we're all paying attention to this. So if we could put those.
Julia, do you want to mention the order of business with the FPCA and the FWAB?
Yes, first thing is FPCA form. Second thing is FWAB. Now, the great thing about most FPCA states is they let you email your ballot, your FPCA form back, even if you have to postal mail your absentee ballot back. but you can go to more information at this link. Thank you for those 22 states. And we have a question from Jessica about people who live in remote places without a mail system. And that's right, Michigan is one of those 22 states that does not accept electronic ballot submissions. I know Governor Whitmer is working with the state legislature to try to make those changes, but it's very likely not going to be possible to change it this fall. So for you guys, there's a couple of options. Most embassies are still accepting ballots and FWABs in their diplomatic pouch. So you can go ahead, do the printout for your FWAB, fill it in, take it to your embassy, and submit it there. They will get it back to Dulles, and Dulles will put it into the mail stream. There are some embassies that are not accepting ballots. They've canceled or suspended their consular services, in which case your next option is a courier service. DHL will take your ballot and send it to back to Michigan. FedEx will as well. So Jessica, if you can tell us where you are, and we can tell you if your embassy is handling sending things through the diplomatic pouch. But again, the diplomatic pouch is not fast. It's probably a little bit slower than a postal service, but if it's your only choice, that's the one you can take right now. Sudan, let's see. I'm not sure, I'd have to look if they have American Citizen Services right now in Sudan. It's a really good question.
Well, I just want to say hi, because I used to live in South Sudan and also was in Sudan. So, and as someone from New York, I totally understand your mail system problems. So. Okay, so Sudan's not, the embassy's not accepting ballots. So then the next solution is courier. And then finally, sometimes just reach out to your local election office and say, here's my situation. No post, no embassy. What can I do? I really want to vote this election year. Reach out and talk to your local election office and say, can I possibly send an email back? Just talk to them. They're humans too. They understand these things. We can't guarantee anything, but it's better than not trying. So we really recommend that as the third, if you can't do courier. Other questions? Oh, we have a question about donations. Well, honestly, I'll tell you where the best place you can donate to right now is. If you're abroad, I really recommend making a difference and helping do outreach abroad by donating to Democrats Abroad, and I'll tell you why. No one else is paying for ads outside the United States except for Democrats Abroad. No one else is doing outreach, paid outreach through phone banking, et cetera, except for Democrats Abroad. Our votes can make a difference, and we are an untapped resource. So please donate to Democrats Abroad. You can go to democratsabroad.org/donate and really make a difference. And the great thing is you're making a difference not only in one race, you're making a difference in every single congressional district is sending voters and ballots back through DA. So that's my recommendation. Thank you, Wendy, for donating and volunteering. All right, so just going up the, any other questions about voting that you guys have? Has anyone not yet requested your ballot? Anyone willing to admit that? That's okay. We are all like that. Everyone, there's moments of procrastination. This is my advice to you. Set September 1st in your calendar as the very last moment where you can request your ballot as your kind of procrastination date. Everyone needs pretend it's November 1st. Let's see what else. We have another question. Yes, Helen says it took 5 minutes on Vote from Abroad. It's really, really fast. And if you practice several times, you can get it down to 2. But you probably don't need to practice that often. 5:49, guys, that's pretty fast. Someone needs to try to beat Helen's record. Do we have, everyone, someone can try right now and tell us how long it took you. We also wanted to mention that if you have questions about voting, we do have 2 things. We have an online help desk. Just send an email to gotv@democratsabroad.org. We would adore helping you. We have a huge help desk who loves to do that. And every Sunday, midnight to midnight Eastern time, we have Zoom rooms, a Zoom room where you can join our Zoom room, meet our great volunteers, and have your questions answered in a breakout room with you and one other volunteer. So again, that's every Sunday, midnight to midnight. Go to democratsabroad.org and you will see this cute little graphic that says
Zoom room voter help desks. Totally recommend it. Great use of your Sunday. Any other questions? Oh, delegates, what am I missing? And by the way, this is the fantastic delegation. They've all become voter experts. It's kind of wonderful and it's great. So I don't have to worry about being the person with the answers. There's so many people here who can answer the questions. Anybody want to pipe in and say something?
Julia,
Yes.
there's a question. I've been receiving the absentee ballots in the primaries. Do I have to request again for the federal election?
If you sent in your request this year, you don't. But I really recommend that if you didn't send in your request form, that you do, because in the general election, we're going to have a war, guys. This is a war about ballots, and a war, and you have to have all the evidence, all the federal evidence you possibly can that shows that you officially requested your ballot. So if you didn't officially request your ballot, please do it, even if you received a ballot for the primaries. Really, really important. Another thing I want to say is, if you voted in the Democrats abroad primary, that is our primary. It's not connected to your state. You still need to request a ballot. Very important thing to understand. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Oh, let's see.
Oh, it's Helen. I just wanted to say, like, I requested my ballot, and then a couple of days later, my local county registrar emailed me back, and then they recently did a great job of like re-emphasizing, like reminding me, telling me when my ballot's coming out. And I think just really like follow up, establish that relationship with your local registrar. It took me a long time to find the phone numbers, find the right emails, but do it now because, you know, there's going to be a lot of questions coming up in the election, and that relationship is really crucial.
That is really important. And one other thing I wanted to say is, because we don't know what's going to happen, you know, we need to make sure we have evidence that we voted. Please make sure before you postal mail your ballot that you take a picture of the envelope. If you have any problems, if that envelope gets returned to you, you get in touch with us immediately. Our email is voterprotection@democratsabroad.org. Info at also works, but any slightly shady dealings, anything that's kind of questionable, don't say, oh, it's just my mail service. Oh, it's just that, just that. Let us know about it, because what your outreach can make a difference for thousands of other voters. So it's really important for you to tell us about these things. Thank you, David, for that link. Do we have any questions in the Q&A? Let's see.
I have a question, Julia.
Go ahead, Ken. Ken is another one of our DNC members.
On the FWAB, I guess I call it the FWAB. Anyway, I have registered, but I haven't mailed in the FWAB yet. How do you package the FWAB in the envelope system? Is it just in a single envelope, or you got to do 2 envelopes with the FWAB and the return?
Well, the FWAB, what I really recommend is that you go to fap.gov and read very carefully their instructions, and make sure that you're going over in detail, like just step by step with your envelope in hand, how they recommend wrapping it up. And one thing that's useful for voters to know is that there is a FWAB ballot envelope that you can print out. There's a C4 envelope for everyone living outside of Europe, outside of the US and Canada. And then there's a regular US size envelope that you can print. But really the best thing to do is just to go to those instructions and walk one step after another down that list, the bullet list, to make sure you have, you've done it the exact correct way. And also, and Ken, if you want to, we can get you on a phone call on next Sunday about that in our Zoom room. But again, just because every state has a little bit different instructions, I would really recommend following them one point after another on from FAP. So, one question in the chat box from Teresa Morelli. It's about someone who cannot remember their address abroad. First of all, let me just tell you, a lot of people are in that same state. That's a very, very common problem. There are a couple of things you can do. One is actually go to where you last lived, do a little Google Earth video, and kind of you can kind of actually trace your steps to where you last lived. It's actually really useful. Also ask your friends and family for any old addresses they might have in their address books, and see if you can go to the local election office, and sometimes if you really can't track it down, you can ask them and say, look, I've forgotten my address, but I used to live here. Here's my last name and my social security number, or even your old driver's license. It will help you identify your location.
Julie, there's a question about signatures.
Okay, go. What's the question about signatures?
It's from Jim Ford. So I see we need to sign the request. Do we print it, sign it, scan it back, and send it?
It depends upon, every state is a little bit different. There are some states that allow you to email your request back through the Vote from Abroad site. And in that case, you write your signature on a piece of paper and you take a picture and then attach it to your PDF. Other states like California require you to actually print out the ballot and sign, the form, sign it, and then send that whole thing back. It just really depends. Every state's a bit different. Again, please follow the instructions at the end of your, when you're at that signature place. And one other very, very important note, states are matching signatures. Florida has a whole process around signature curing. So I really recommend making a copy of your signature so you remember how you signed it, so that when you vote in the future, you can always use a similar signature. I don't know, sometimes people can get creative about their signatures, and it's really important to not get creative and use the same one that you've used when you registered or requested your ballot. All right, everybody.
Oh, I think there was a question in the Q&A.
Oh, great, tell me. Let's see.
If someone without a social security number who's never lived in the US, but is a US citizen living in Canada, if they can vote, so her son became a US citizen in Toronto in February and is turned 18 in April, but because of COVID, they haven't made it past Buffalo to get a social security number. I'm from Buffalo, that's
a really, what I recommend is let's talk to our gurus and I take that one offline, go to gotv@democratsabroad.org and let's answer that one. It's a really good question. You might need to get a social security number, but we'll look into that and answer it. And this is actually a question that I think several people are having right now because embassies are not providing social security numbers in some places because of their consular services being limited. So we're trying to deal with that one as well. But please get in touch with us at gotv@democratsabroad.org with that question, and we'll take it offline.
Julia.
Go ahead, Connie.
Connie, on votefromabroad.org, they now actually print that they suggest that you use email and not postal mail.
That is if you, one very, very, very important note, thank you, Connie, is that everyone, when you are asking your local election office to send you a ballot, make sure you ask to send it by email. Do not ask for post. I know it's fun to have the paper ballot, but you'll be getting that paper ballot in December and you don't want it as a Christmas present. You want it now. So,
okay, so we follow those orders.
Exactly. Everyone, the question is going to say, how do you want to receive this, your ballot, by email, online, or fax, or post? Well, you might receive it by fax, but or
fax.
I'm just, some people like fax, but I really recommend the email solution. Please go with email.
Yeah, it says email recommended. And I've never seen that actually before. I'm just looking at our site right now.
It's very important to ask for email.
Yeah, okay.
So we have a question from Lee. I have voted this year in the primaries and have already filled out the FBCA. So you don't have to, you can go ahead, depending upon if your state is a postal mail state. If it's postal mail, then we say absentee ballot, the write-in absentee ballot. If it's fax, you can wait until September 19th when ballots come out. If it's email, you can wait till September 19th when ballots come out. And let me go to the fax point. If your state is one of the 4 states that allow ballots to be faxed back, what we recommend is using an email to fax solution. FVAP.gov has an email to fax solution. What you do is you're going to email them. You need to make sure you have the right cover sheet. Very, very important. Faxes must have the correct cover sheet. And then you're going to email your ballot and that cover sheet to an address which we're going to put in the chat box. Yep. And make sure you guys get that email address.
Yeah, I don't have that link. Does somebody else have
Oh,
that?
it's okay. It's easy. It's fax@feap.gov. There you go. And one thing I really, just as a note from FEAP, it's a very manual process for them, so don't wait until November. They will run out of capacity. Go ahead and do that, fax in your ballot September 20th when you get it. All right. Any other questions?
Julia. There's 4 states that allow that?
The 4 states that are fax states are California, Florida, Louisiana, and Nebraska? Let me see. What's our 4th one?
Alaska.
Alaska. Wait, say it again. Nebraska. Did I hear Nebraska?
Alaska.
Alaska. Okay, let's write those down into the chat box, everybody. We should make up a song about this. Alaska, Florida, California, very important, and Louisiana. Yep.
Julia, do you mind if I say something?
Go ahead, Bob.
It's a little bit off topic. It's not about voting. I want to go back to something that you said earlier. But first, I want to thank you for this Michigan Day with the 2 governors and the state representative. It's my home state. I'm very proud to be from the Mitten and to be represented by Governor Whitmer. So I was delighted to have her on. Thank you for organizing it. I want to go back to something you said about the DNC representatives. You know, John, soft-spoken guy, great guy, awesome to be at the convention with. It's kind of a scary thing when he gets excited and stands up and starts roaring his approval, right? Because he's so soft-spoken. Otherwise, Orlando, suave, debonair. We're not done with him yet. He's going to be back. But Connie Board, ladies and gentlemen, Connie Board has been involved in Democrats Abroad for something like 40 years. She has supported this organization financially, emotionally, logistically, and in just about every other way imaginable, while raising 6 kids, writing 2 best-selling cookbooks, and translating Simone de Beauvoir's Second Sex, among other things. She may not want to take the credit for this, but she's responsible for me being here as well, and a whole lot of other people. We held grants together for decades, and she has served on the DNC multiple times, most recently this cycle, but back when Howard Dean was the chair as well. And she has done so much for this organization that most of you cannot even believe it. If I were to continue with her resume in this organization, we would be here all day. So Connie Board, you know, she's like a 3rd mother to me in some ways. She might not want to hear that either. She probably hates me as a kid. We're both half Italian, you know, and so we had many, many fights on the phone, screaming matches sometimes, and the next day we're hugging and kissing. She's a fantastic woman and deserves a huge, huge round of applause. And I hope, even though she's retiring from the DNC, she's not retiring from Democrats Abroad. Thank you, Connie. Love you dearly.
Love you, Bob. Thank you.
Love you, Connie. We love you so much. And thank you so, so, so much.
On to the
We
women's
love you,
topic.
Connie.
Love you. Love you all.
Jesus, may we?
Thank you.
All right, with that, guys, I think we're going to conclude our session. Again, we will have our next voting online Zoom call on Sunday. Just go to the website, you'll find it. There's a cute guy holding up a tablet, and it's a Zoom room assistance help. But thank you to everyone. First of all, you guys have been the most outstanding delegation in my experience, and it's been just a real pleasure to work with you. Thank you, Connie, and thank you to all of our DNC members. Thank you, John. We're going to miss you a lot. And thank you, Orlando, if you're watching on Facebook. We miss you too. And everyone, we will see you really soon.